In this video, I'll talk about the last two TOEP categories. Instead of looking at individual words or sentences, these categories focus on broader aspects of communication. The first category is called Rhetorical Organization. This focuses on how easy it is to follow and understand your ideas. Even if a listener can understand every single word you say, they still may not understand the overall point of your lesson if your organization is unclear. One strategy for making your organization clear is to state your agenda in the beginning. For example, in the beginning of this video, I stated an agenda. I told you what we were going to talk about, and that helps you to process what you hear later. You might just give a verbal agenda by saying what you're planning to do, or you may write your agenda down on the board. Of course, before you can share an agenda with your audience, you need to know what the agenda will be and how you will structure your talk. So preparation is another big part of delivering an organized presentation. In most cases, people in the US organize presentations with an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. In the introduction, you can state your agenda, provide background information your audience needs to know, or share interesting information that will engage your audience. After hearing your introduction, your audience should know what the main idea of your presentation is. The body of a presentation tends to have several points. Think about the most logical way to organize your points. For example, if you are describing a process, you may describe each step in sequential order from what happens first to what happens last. If you are describing a historical event, you may arrange information in chronological order, either from oldest to newest or newest to oldest. If you're describing a structure, you might arrange the information based on the position of things, like from top to bottom or inside to outside. There are many ways you can organize the body, just make sure to think about the most appropriate way based on your topic. Finally, the conclusion of a presentation usually includes a summary of what you talked about. In a class, you may also tell students what you'll talk about in the next class or assign them some homework. After you've planned out the organization of your presentation, think about how you'll make that organization clear to your audience. One way you can do that is with signposts and transitions. A signpost is a verbal cue you can use to tell your audience how your presentation is organized. Just like signs on the road show drivers where they are and where they're going, signposts in a presentation help your audience to understand and follow your presentation. For example, you can use a phrase like, "The main idea is," to highlight the importance of something. Or a phrase like, "On the other hand," to introduce a contrasting point. Or, "As a result," to signpost an effect or conclusion. You can also use transition words or phrases to show when you're ready to move from one topic to the next. So right now that we've talked about signposts, let's move on to transitions. This is an example of using a transition to let the audience know that we're beginning the next section. Some common transitions are words like first, second, next, finally, or phrases like let's move on to, now let's look at, and so on. Okay, so now that we've discussed rhetorical organization, let's move on to the last TOEP scoring category, question handling. Answering questions is one of the main responsibilities a TA has. During the TOEP, you'll be asked a variety of questions, and you will be assessed on your understanding of those questions and how you respond to those questions. There are a few strategies that you can use to help you handle student questions well. One strategy that you can use is restating the student's question. This gives you the opportunity to make sure that you understand what the student has asked you, and also lets all the other students in the class hear the question. You don't necessarily need to restate every single question, but it can be really helpful to restate complex questions or questions that you want to clarify. Another strategy that can be useful with question handling is stalling or deferring. Using a phrase like, "Oh, that's an interesting question," or let me think about that. It can show students that you have heard their question, you have acknowledged their question, but you still need a few seconds before you can respond. You can also defer a question to a later time if you know that you don't have enough time to give an appropriate response. In that case, you could ask the student to come to your office hours or talk to you after class. Finally, after you answer a student's question, it can be helpful to check in with them and make sure that they are satisfied with your answer. So you could say, "Did that answer your question?" or "Is that clear?" to give the student an opportunity to rephrase their question or ask a new question if you didn't completely answer it already. Answering student questions can be stressful. You don't know what you will be asked in advance, but using some of these strategies can help you handle both easy and more difficult student questions.